Hey everybody, welcome back to the Plays and Fades YouTube channel. I'm your host, Gordo Gambles, and welcome back to another full card breakdown. This time for UFCNoche. We are celebrating ourselves some Mexican fighting love, and with all the legends and the rise of Mexican MMA we have recently, it's only right we get ourselves another, let's say, stop on this international tour. It feels like we've been stopping everywhere: Australia, Paris, Singapore, and now it feels like we're going to Mexico. Nah, this one's at T-Mobile, but still a fun card nonetheless, one where we do have 11 fights, including a title fight on a fight night or a Noche card there as well. So very fun one. I'm excited to break it down nonetheless. Quickly before I do so, I want to mention a couple things. First of all, starting a new segment thanks to my friends at CoolBet on this same channel. You won't have to go far, where I cover my favorite money line, typically an underdog, my favorite parlay to build the bankroll, and my favorite long shot prop. We built the bankroll last week with our money line, and hoping to do it again here for a fun one. Check that out on the channel as well. Second thing, we're almost at 1,000 subscribers. Make sure to hit the like button down below, subscribe to the channel, spread the word, because as always, we're going to break down this entire card from a DraftKings and a betting perspective. 11 fights to cover, some very heavy favorites, so let's try to find some value. How are we targeting this card? Well, there's only one way to find out. Let's do this. We get the fight started with a 6-0 Josephine Knutsson versus the 6-1 short notice replacement Mann, and what is a pretty interesting one. We do ourselves a very large, hefty favorite to get the night started, and one where we're getting all this shuffling happening last minute. Truth be told, I had 3 units lined up against Knutsson on Lucinda when she was at -150, and now instead of Knutsson being the underdog, someone I was betting on, she's now, -600? In a fight where, yeah, I expect her to win, but just a very weird circumstances where she's going from the underdog against a high level competition to facing a short notice replacement here, Mann, who I do not think is necessarily UFC level. Yeah, I'll give it to her. 6-1 record, not too bad, not too shabby, but what we do see happen in this matchup is someone who is highly touted in Knutsson, someone who's fighting out of that Kazachmayev All-Stars in Sweden fight camp, as well as someone who has a pretty good kickboxing record behind her against this undersized Mann, someone who is primarily a grappler, whose cardio, whose striking defense doesn't look the best, and her level of competition isn't the top level either. She is someone who has holes in her game. Now, am I going to sit here behind my little camera here and say Knutsson at -650 is the biggest value bet of the year? No. Like, she's still a debutante. She's still someone who I think can be faded in the long run. But in this matchup here, she's extremely well-rounded, is going to have the clear speed, striking, and technicality advantage on the feet, and is going to have the physicality and clinch control time to be able to fend off the takedowns and hold her own there as well. On the mat, I do think she has a decent level of competency from bottom position if Mann were to get there, but I don't think it even gets there. I think that the physicality and the technicality of Knutsson is able to keep this on the feet, all leading me to believe that it is a fight she should win at a very high clip. Going to be the much better technical striker. I don't like the looping way that Mann throws punches to close range, and in doing so, I do think she gets countered. We saw, although Knutsson has mostly decisions, she had power in her Dana White Contender Series bout last time. I think she has more desire to finish after what Dana White said, and she's getting this opportunity here, and I do think she's able to find it here, also considering the way that Mann likes to slow down the stretch. So on one side of things, I think that the fight doesn't go to decision, or the Knutsson side of distance at +140 has value, because I do think she has all the tools to get a finish here, try to make Dana White happy after last time out, and has the ability to absolutely piece up Mann on the feet. But when it comes to DraftKings at 9.5K, someone who is in a fight that is still projected to go all 15 minutes, someone who doesn't have the most finishing ability, do we want her over someone like Rosas Jr, Godinez? Like, she isn't someone who's jumping off the page to me, and she is someone who I think maybe will be resorted to a cash option, but even at that, a mostly fade fight here. Mann, I guess her path to victory is takedowns, top control, ground and pound. Something that I think is a very low percentage outcome, and for that reason, I won't have much of her at 6.7, but anything is possible. I just think that her path to victory is limited to a finish and top control, which does score well. Just don't think she gets it. So give me Knutsson to win this fight. I do think she goes out there, look to put on a statement, maybe play some plus money inside the distance line, but she is someone who I think has the advantages, especially on the feet, but also in the physicality, and should get this fight done a large percentage of the time. Next up, we have the 7-2 debutante Charlie Campbell versus the 13-3, might as well be a debutante, Alex Reyes. And I say that Alex Reyes might be a debutante because he is on a 6-year layoff. He's making the return, and longest layoff I think I've ever seen, but at this point of his career, when he's 36 years old, almost 37, there are a lot of red flags in this matchup. Reyes is someone who, sure, has a decent record, has an overall decent skill set, but at this age, at this, let's say, huge layoff with his ring rust in front of him, coming off a knockout loss, there are so many question marks to be thrown around him, and I do think he's facing someone, Charlie Campbell, who is better than the debutante tag entails. I think Charlie Campbell should be in the UFC. I bet on him against Chris Duncan. He should have won that fight. I don't know what happened. He got reckless, I guess, and it was a crazy counter, crazy turn of events, but that was a wild fight that I think doesn't happen too much of the time. I think that a large majority of that matchup, if it were to play out again, Campbell can find that knockout. He can stay safe, and I do think he has all the tools to have success in the UFC, so I'm happy to see him signed here. Now, I do think Alex Reyes has a decent overall skill set, or at least he used to. Good combinations, very technically sound. I think he got too much of a brawl, and last time against a larger Mike Perry, which cost him that win there, but I think if we're looking at where he is now, I can't really trust all that research I did on him because that was so long ago. We don't know if he's training. We don't know at which point of the career he is. We don't know if he's just trying to fight off his contract. There are so many things left to be seen from Alex Reyes that I can't probably go out there and give a proper prediction. Instead, we have a guy here in Charlie Campbell who, I mean, after losing that fight on Contender Series, he came back, got a nice finish win, and he has that motivation, the desire, and the youth advantage to go out there and have success in this matchup, which I think is kind of baked into the line. I think Campbell is a very solid striker. I think he has great boxing combinations, good counters, great power in his own right, and also has some grappling capabilities out there to have success. But again, this fight is largely predicated on that long layoff, and for that reason, I can't make too much of a prediction with too much conviction. Like, I'm going to pick Charlie Campbell. I think he's a more proven commodity, and I think I like his power in boxing to even beat the Alex Reyes of 6 years ago. But due to all those unknowns, it's not what I want to put too much stock in. And I think there are better options to go out there and target from both a betting perspective and even a DraftKings perspective. Of course, you have to acknowledge the fact that Reyes coming off this huge layoff could allow Campbell to go out there and get an early finish scoring very well. And for that reason, at 9.3K, great GBP option for Campbell. But considering all the unknowns, considering the states of their careers, I guess you'll have to look at this fight from the Reyes perspective as well. But it pains me to go out there and not be able to give a proper read on it because I just don't think I have one at this point. And I wouldn't want to go out there and spread false narratives and tell you I'm super convicted on one side because I'm not. I will not be touching this fight from a moneyline perspective on the betting markets. I think on DraftKings, although you're going to have some exposure due to the possibilities and all the unknowns, this isn't my favorite single entry or cash lineup for sure. They're only contrarian tournament plays where I think Charlie Campbell could have success, but one that I think that if you're looking to play it safer, this may be not the best fight to go to. Again, you can get different. Maybe this 6-year layoff will scare people off of the Reyes side, and he could come back out there, look like an old self, and have success at 6.9K. You just can't trust him to do that. There are so many unknowns. I want to move past this fight. Then we get ourselves some Canadian love. 9-2 Jasudavicius versus the 10-1 Tracy Cortez, and what is a very, very fun matchup. And I did a show with Bombcore Sports. I guess that's like 2-3 months ago now, or right after that UFC Canada card when Jasmine was looking to pin up potential matchups. And I said the one matchup she might be able to have success against is this Tracy Cortez matchup. And she is here. And the line, I think, is placed around perfectly. At first, when this fight was announced, I was expecting to get big plus money on Jasudavicius because people still don't believe in her, me included. But I don't. We instead have ourselves a very close line. And I do think it's warranted for a very close matchup. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm still not sold on Jasudavicius. I bet against her with Maverick. Horrible bet. I won't even get into that, but what she showed is her style can bode well in the UFC. I mean, I think that she can be hitting a lot of these matchups. Her striking defense is horrible. I think she can be out physical in some matchups like Natalia Silva did to her instead, but what she is she's a brawler. She's almost like a psychopath. Like she'll go forward at all time, not worry about anything coming her way, and I have to admire that. She's super durable, never been finished, and will just continue to go forward trying to press her opponents, shoot for takedowns, and look to impose her will, which you love to see. Flip side of things, I think Tracy Cortez is much more technical. I like that. I think she'll be the better boxer of the two. I think she's going to have some solid offensive wrestling in her own right, but can she survive the pace? Can she survive the output, the pressure, and the psychopathness that we're going to see from Jasudavicius here? That's what I have to worry about. And Miranda Maverick wasn't able to survive it. Fernandez wasn't able to survive it. And for that reason, I have my question marks here. Tracy Cortez has slowed down the stretch. She didn't look the best there against Melissa last time out. And sure, she still got the win. I think she's going to have to find a perfect game plan here against Jasmine. That is going to include takedowns, control time, and neutralizing the pressure that Jasmine's going to bring. And yes, it's a possibility, but I do not think she should be a large favorite in this spot. I think the line's about right where it is. I might even get some Jasmine if I get more plus money, just because she is going to have that size, that reach, that physicality to go out there and impose her will, along with that wrestling background in her back pocket. So yeah, I think I'm going to do it. I think I'm going to pick the Canadian fighter here to have some success and win this fight, but it's super close. Cortez is more proven, so you can give that to her as well, and she is making the right training adjustment or regimens, taking that time off, but I think that the Tracy Cortez that came out against Gato will struggle with the volume, pace, and pressure of Jasmine, and I think for that reason, I want to see Jasmine break her. So let's see that here. It should be a very high level wrestling bout. And for that reason, you're going to want to have to look for some exposure on DraftKings because those wrestling matches sometimes score well. I mean, Cortez is very consistent. I mean, usually scoring in the 80s, has scored 102 before in a fight where she was able to have 8 minutes of control time, but she's had over 6.5 minutes of control time in each one of her fights, leading her to have a decent floor. Whereas Jasmine also someone who comes out there 85, 105 points in her last 2 wins. And I think that because of the pace both these fighters are going to bring, because of the styles, they're great cash plays. This should go to decision a lot of the time. And they do have very, very high floors in that rate on just what a pretty risky card. So I guess by theory, if you're looking for underdog, give me Jasmine. Very good cash play. There are fighters with higher ceilings on the GBP perspective, but one I think is going to be a very fun matchup. Give me the Canadian here. Then we keep it moving with the 10-5 Edgar Chairez versus the 11-5 Daniel Lacerda, Daniel da Silva, whatever you want to call him. I don't care because he is back and I am pumped for it. Daniel Lacerda is one of my favorite fighters to watch because not that he's good, not that he's talented, but he may be the most entertaining flyweight we have ever seen just because he brings such a high pace. Each one of his fights have ended under 1.5 rounds. The guy is killer to be killed, and in the UFC, he has been killed. 0-4 at the UFC, and he's getting a 5th fight. That speaks to his ability to put on fun fights and have success. Well, I guess not really have any success at all, but entertain the fans enough to have a 5th fight back, and he's doing so against a guy who had a very tough debut against Taira in Edgar Chairez here. And I think when we're looking at these styles, every Lacerda fight is going to be the same breakdown. This guy, I think, is extremely offensively talented. Great technicality, great power, good grappling and wrestling as well in his back pocket. He can do all this stuff for 3 minutes, and then he gasses out. And it's that lack of cardio, that lack of durability that makes him impossible to trust. Because I think that at cardio parity, he could beat a lot of this division. He just doesn't have it. And what happens is in every fight, he'll win that first round, and then he'll get finished in the second, and he'll lose these fights. And I think when he gets a guy here in Chairez, who his style, Chairez, is a Mexican brawler. Ton of power on the feet, pretty technical in his own right. Going to be the far, let's say, more durable guy, a guy who's never been knocked out, is not going to back down. And if Lacerda can't get him out of there, I can't trust picking Lacerda in round 2, in round 3 to go out there and have success. Yes, Chairez has been submitted before. I think his ground game, his takedown defense is something that can be exploited, and Lacerda can go out there and do that early on. But if you can't get that finish, he's going to fade even faster, and that's going to allow Chairez to have success. So in my eyes, as every single Lacerda fight, it's Lacerda early, Chairez late. I'm going to have to pick Chairez, UFCNoche, Mexican fighter, but I'm cheering for Lacerda, and I want more Lacerda on DraftKings. At 7.5K, his path to victory is a first-round finish, one that I don't think happens a lot of the time, but when it does happen, it's going to score amazing. He has power, he has a ground game, he has the capability to get Chairez out of there. It's just can he execute, because if he doesn't, he will get finished in that 2nd or 3rd round, allowing Chairez to have some success as well, but super, super interesting matchup. Give me Chairez, although I'm cheering for Lacerda to get it done early. A pivotal fight to target on DraftKings, and one where, unfortunately, the under is juiced, but I like that as well. And by the way, we're on a string of just massive favorites, continuing with the 11-2 Roman Kopylov, 11-4 Josh Fremd. Fremd stopping on short notice against the surging Roman Kopylov, a guy who's just been on absolute tear recently. Incredible kickboxer who went to Dagestan to work on his wrestling and has really showed leaps and bounds of improvement every time he steps to the octagon. And I've doubted him. I've trusted him before. I'm leaning toward trusting him again here. A guy who's a large favorite price tag. I tend to agree here. He is going to be the far more superior technical kickboxer, a guy with a ton of power, but also a great war of attrition, a good ability to break his opponents down, have success in that own right, and finish these guys in rounds 2 or 3. I like to see that from here. He's also a guy who can fend off the takedowns of Fremd, a guy who worked on his wrestling, and although it was a low point of his career to start, is able to have success in these fights. And against a guy, Josh Fremd, who couldn't take down Jamie Pickett, I do think Kopilov's going to be the much better fighter everywhere here, and he's warranted of that huge favorite price tag. Now, with that being said, a guy in Kopylov, who although has been getting finishes, isn't a guy who gets them too early. He likes to get them in the later rounds. He's going out there and he scored 92, 108, 80 in his 3 wins in the UFC. That's not necessarily optimal for someone on a card with the Padillas, the Shevchenkos, the Godinezes, Rosas. There are so many high-scoring fighters that I don't necessarily think Kopylov has the highest ceiling on the slate. Sure, he has good finish upside, but Fremd has been durable. I think Kopylov wins this fight a lot of the time. For that reason, his floor is there, but very, very risky fight for large tournament GBP. I think other fighters have better ceilings, and for that reason, don't know if I can get there. Betting standpoint, I'll parlay something, but I'm not sure if it's this one here. Again, straight bets are going to be tough this week just because of how many large favorites there are, and I do think that Fremd might have some grappling success early on. I don't think he can sustain it. I do think Kopylov's constantly improving. I do think Kopylov wins this fight at a high clip. Fremd, I guess 7.1K, could have some success, but 66 in a win last time against Pickett. I don't see him dominating Kopylov here, and I don't see him winning this fight at a high clip at all. So it's Kopylov all day, but again, not the highest ceiling. This isn't my favorite fight to target on DraftKings, but the pick is going to be Kopylov for sure. And so usually I'd be breaking down this next fighter as a Canadian, but for UFCNoche, we'll let this one slide. 10-3 Lupita Godinez versus 7-3 Elise Reed. Godinez, Canadian fighter, typically rips that double flag a lot of the time. You love to see it, and she's a very, very talented fighter, someone who I've backed for better or for worse in almost all of her bouts so far. 5-3 inside the UFC, someone who has showed incredible promise. In some bouts, she's going out there scoring 127, 129 against Carnelossi, against Gomez Suarez. Has the ability to land 5 takedowns, 8 takedowns in a bout. Averages 3.43 takedowns per 15 minutes. I mean, her aggression, her takedown upside is definitely there, and you love to see it. In doing so, she can have a ton of success. The problem is, she's fallen in love with her hands recently. In her last 3 fights, landed 1 takedown, 0 takedowns, 1 takedowns. In one of those fights, she didn't take down Angela Hill, and she ended up losing a decision because she's falling in love with her hands. And I think that her striking is definitely improved. It's definitely there, but her bread and butter is that ground game, and she should be using it here against someone, Elise Reed, who, man, does she ever struggle on the mat. Elise Reed has been alternating wins and losses, and I think she gets a loss here. Every time she's been taken down, she's been finished on the mat, KO'd early by Eubanks, KO'd late by Hughes, submitted by Luma Lookboon. I mean, people who have just been able to take her down and have a ton of success in doing so, and when she's getting her wins, they're against fighters who can't really take her down, right? I mean, McKenna refused to. Martinez even got taken down a few times, and Frey, this fight, did stay on the feet. To me, Reed is a decent kickboxer, but she's going to be just overwhelmed here. The size, the physicality, the technicality, the wrestling prowess is all on the Lupi Godinez side, and it's kind of baked into the line where it is now. Now, even on the feet, I think Lupi Godinez can hold her own and have success there, but I don't want to see her do that. I want to see her take her down and dominate this girl on the mat, and I think if she does, she could have real round 1 finish upside and high-scoring DraftKings upside in her own right. And at 9.4K, she's one of my favorite cash plays because she has one of the highest ceilings as well as one of the highest floors, because I think if Reed wins this fight, which I don't see happening a lot of the time, it's a 15-minute affair. I don't see Reed getting a finish here. I think it's either Godinez early with wrestling or Godinez late by decision because of her strikes, which wouldn't score as well, but her floor is definitely there. Lupi Godinez should win this fight all day. It just depends by which method. I hope she wrestles. She has a full camp this time, and I hope she has success. I'm cheering for her for sure, and it feels like they are giving her a decent matchup for success. Very hefty favorite, and tough to trust someone who's been falling in love with her hands as much as she does, but she has all the tools and capabilities to look dominant here this weekend. And then we hop onto the main card. 15-4 Fernando Padilla versus the 14-5-1 Canadian Kyle Nelson. And I'll admit it, guys. Out of all the Canadian fighters in the UFC, I hate on Kyle Nelson too much. I always pick against him. I don't think he's that good, but he's making the proper improvement. I mean, he's been winning fights. All power to him. Happy to see a Canadian succeed, but he's getting a tough matchup here. On UFCNoche against a super tough Mexican prospect here in Padilla, this seems like an uphill battle. Because let's get right to it. I mean, Padilla's a guy who's never been finished, and he's going to continue to walk forward with a ton of offensive weapons. This guy is very killer to be killed, but he's got such good durability that he hasn't been killed yet. He's not perfect. He can be walking down, out-volumed, and lose decisions. But Kyle Nelson's not that guy. Kyle Nelson is super low volume, has a ton of power in his hands, and used to be balls to the wall in that first round with that power, try to get finishes, and then would fade if he couldn't do it. But now he's trying to fight a point fighting affair. It worked against Bilder because Bilder didn't show up, but man, I'm still not sold on Kyle Nelson. Slower fighter, and though he does have power and decent range, I mean, he doesn't have the most volume, doesn't have the best minute-winning ability, doesn't have the best durability or cardio, and I think Padilla breaks him here. Padilla's a guy with not only incredible strike on the feet, but he's a primary grappler. Very good ground game from bottom position. I think Kyle Nelson will look to wrestle here, and which will probably be a mistake considering how active Padilla is off his back. And on the feet, Padilla has a ton of power, throws in great combinations, and will look to pressure Kyle Nelson, not let him really coast to the judges' scorecards like he has in his few fights before this. For that reason, give me Padilla inside the distance, give me the under, which by the way, would be the 3rd time taking a Kyle Nelson under, and the 3rd time being hurt, maybe the 4th time. I really want to bet Nelson unders. I always do. On paper, the metrics look great. He's been a decision fighter recently. I don't think Padilla will let him do that. I think Padilla steams through him here and has success doing so. And that's why at 8.9K, I love the guy. Ton of finish upside. He scored 109 in his first win against a Rosa. A much better competitor, in my opinion, than someone Nelson. And we've seen Nelson knocked out before. We've seen Nelson struggle against high-level competition. And I do think Padilla has the perfect stylistic matchup to break Nelson here, bring the pace towards him, and get a solid finish. I love him at 8.9. He's one of my favorite DraftKings targets. And as we continue, we get another Mexican fighter, another prospect. 13-1 Daniel Zellhuber versus the 20-10 Christos Giagos. Simply put, we have a very interesting matchup between kind of a journeyman and then a young Mexican prospect looking to promote. I think Zellhuber is someone the UFC really wants to promote here, and because of that, on the main card against a fighter who's lost a majority of his UFC fights, I think it's super fun. And I think that Giagos is someone who isn't a pushover. I think he's very talented. I think he's got some good wrestling chops, some good strike in his own right, but against low-level competition. When he faces this step up in competition, which he does all the time, nothing but credit to him for that. He can be out-grappled, he can be submitted, and he can be knocked out. Worst of all, though, he fades on the stretch. He is very front-loaded, and if he can't get that finish early on, tends to crumble. And Zellhuber's the opposite. Zellhuber has an absolute engine behind him, a ton of volume, ton of activity, ton of grappling success as well. And although he has that loss on his record, those are the UFC jitters. I do believe they're gone now. He showed that against Lena Venata last time, and I think he comes out to the best of his abilities. I think if you look at this overall matchup, I already mentioned the cardio's on Zellhuber's side. I also think he's the sharper striker. I also think he's a more physically imposing fighter to stuff the takedowns of Giagos early, and I think he has the grappling to put up with that offensive skill set in that first round, leading him to take over late. All for me to say, I do think Zellhuber wins this fight at a very high clip, and he is someone who I want to back here. However, if I mention the offensive mindedness, the decency for Giagos early on, do I want to play Zellhuber at 8.8K if his path to victory is largely a decision or round 2-3 finish over the likes of Shevchenko, Padilla, Campbell, Godinez? Like, it's just very hard to get to these fighters. I have to prioritize my chalky favorites here, and although I think Zellhuber wins this fight at a high clip, I'll prefer Padilla. I prefer Shevchenko. I prefer Godinez, and for that reason, it's hard for me to get to him. Yes, I think he wins this fight at a high clip, but only scored 75 last time. Not the highest ceiling, and although he's a young prospect who I do think wins this fight, puts on a showcase bout, and continues to climb, there may be better option on the DraftKings side of things. And man, they just keep getting younger, don't they? 7-1, Rosas Jr. versus the 14-3 Terrence Mitchell. And I'm no old man by any means, me break down these fighters, I'm typically younger than a lot of these fighters, but Rosas Jr., 18 years old. Super fun prospect to watch. He was 7-0, now 7-1. He finally got his hype train derailed, but I don't think it's in time here. He is a very fun prospect, a guy who is very young, but just an insane talent. He has the ability to go out there and just steamroll his opponents. Good grappling, good wrestling, decent striking, even though I don't think he uses it too much because he wants to go out there and Kamzat people, take them down immediately, submit them right out thereafter, and has the offensive ability to go out there and succeed at a high level. He finished Perrin early on, good back and forth in the Dynamite Contender Series, but he kind of fell off a cliff his last bout, right? He couldn't get C-Rod out of there, and C-Rod had better cardio, and Rosas Jr. was just stuck there. He couldn't get the finish. He faded down the stretch. Could it be a cardio dump, adrenaline dump, UFC jitters? A lot of things to be said, but what he has in front of him here is a UFCNoche card and Terrence Mitchell in front of him. An Alaska FC fighter who is just not UFC level in my opinion, and a guy whose ground game is far, far inferior. Mitchell's a guy who will shoot for takedowns, but isn't the best down there. Can be controlled, can be reversed, can be out-grappled. And I do think this is a tailor-made matchup for Rosas to have success. I can completely see why he's at 9.6K on DraftKings. Mitchell also has questionable durability on the feet as well, and questionable cardio in that own right. I just talked about how Rosas has that cardio dump. I think Mitchell does too, and for that reason, Rosas is going to have the advantages almost everywhere, and he has good enough durability to put up with the length that Mitchell has early. So with that being said, if I'm predicting an early finish by setup match for Rosas Jr., don't I want him on DraftKings? I kind of do. In his first round win against Perrin, he scored 106. At $9,600, that could be optimal. Maybe not, but he truly does have quick win bonus. He truly does have takedown, control time, and finish bonus early, and I do think he wins this fight at a very, very high clip, leading to be one of my preferred options up top. I want to find a way to play him, but it's really hard to do so. Minus 400 inside the distance, minus 185 in that first round. I have to agree. Give me Rosas Jr. and give me Rosas Jr. all day. And that brings us to our co-main event. We have the 25-9 Kevin Big Mouth, or Trailblazer, Holland, versus the 15-2 Jack Della Maddalena. What a fun fight. One of the fights I've been most looking forward to for a long time. I don't even know if that was proper English, but I'm excited, man. Both these guys are super fun fighters to watch, fan favorites for very good reason. Holland being the big mouth he is, and Jack Della Maddalena being a tactical specialist. And there are two real elephants in the room to address. Number one, Jack Della Maddalena just looked underwhelming against Hafez. I mean, very tough opponent. I think people underestimated him, but very close fight, showing some holes in his game as a huge favorite. And I think that's kind of coming back to haunt him here. Whereas Kevin Holland's a guy who has all the skills in the world, just is kind of an idiot, dude. Doesn't use his grappling against Wonder Boy, prefers to just put on a show for the fans and talk and not really look to fight the best of his abilities. I don't really know how to cap this one. Because truth be told, if they were fighting to their best of their abilities, I think skill for skill, Kevin Holland's a better fighter. I like his ground game, I like his submission game, and I like his range here against a guy in Jack Della Maddalena who's an insane boxer, but who can be hit. And for that reason, I kind of want to go out there and take a guy in Kevin Holland. But truth be told, Jack Della Maddalena is a proven prospect. He's a guy who will go out there, fight from boxing range, and look to break his opponent down the stretch, and has incredible technicality to do so. He has been on an absolute hype train towards the top, and I think that if Kevin Holland doesn't use his wrestling here, he could be in for a long night. Now, yes, the length is there for Holland, the durability is there. We could just have a very classic 15-minute kickboxing affair. That'd be so stupid. We just saw Hafez take down and control Della Maddalena. Why not do it yourself, Holland? I don't know. I think I have to pick Holland here, but with no conviction at all. I don't think I'll be betting this fight. I'll be looking to sit back and enjoy it from a fan's perspective, but it is such an interesting matchup. Holland has all the tools to succeed. I don't know if he uses them to the best of his abilities, and we know that Maddalena is going to be game, have opportunities to showcase his incredible boxing, and one that's going to be a fan's delight. So give me Holland. I don't know how well it scores on DraftKings if it is a 15-minute kickboxing affair, because both these guys are extremely durable. And without promise that Holland's going to use any grappling, don't know if I want them too much. I've mentioned a lot of favorites so far, so I'm kind of staying away from that Jack Della Maddalena side. More love for Holland because he has shown the ability to go out there and finish fights, land a score 100, 97, 95. He has the opportunity to do that. And I do think that he has the higher ceiling with the grappling. So super fun matchup. Give me Holland, but super hesitant to do so because he doesn't fight at the best of his abilities. I'm just going to sit back and watch, and hopefully we get an entertaining scrap. And then we get to the main event, the 16-3 champion, Alexa Grasso versus the 23-4 flyweight GOAT in Valentina Shevchenko, and what is a very interesting matchup this weekend. Now, there's no hiding from what I said. I said the first time they fought, this was a poor stylistic matchup for Alexa Grasso, and I picked Shevchenko decisively. Well, huge upset. I ate my words, and we're getting a rematch, and rightfully so, because I do think Shevchenko was winning that fight. And I've seen a lot of love for Grasso. I get it. This card was built around her. I think she impressed people. She's a younger fighter. The tools are there. But you cannot tell me, and I'm going to spoil my pick immediately right now. You cannot tell me that Grasso should be the favorite here. Money's coming into the point where Grasso was only plus 120. Valentina Shevchenko, aside from that slip-up last time, I think is the far more proven fighter. Literally the flyweight GOAT, has the capability to outstrike Grasso from range, implement her wrestling, just dominate where this fight goes, and is sitting at minus 150. To me, I'm very confused by the line because all those getting that big plus money on Grasso, I get it because she's shown the opportunity to capitalize off the mistakes of Shevchenko, but at this line, not so much. And I had to go out there and I had to pick Shevchenko. And I truthfully got a poor line. Like I bet Shevchenko at minus 190 because I didn't think it would get any lower. Well, it got a ton lower and I messed up because that's my own fault. But to me, Shevchenko's just been going to try even harder here. We saw when Nunes lost her belt, she came out and just absolutely destroyed Pena. And I think that although that may be a bit far-fetched here, I do think that Shevchenko was winning that last fight and will continue to be winning these rounds here. From my line side of things, that's my pick. I think she has the far more well-rounded skill set and she showed the capability to win rounds, implement her grappling, and use her physicality to succeed there against an opponent she may be underestimated. Now she comes in with the proper mindset. I do think she goes out there and succeeds, and she is someone I'm picking to win this fight. On DraftKings, though, you want it, right? On one side, I think Shevchenko scored 80 points last time in a loss. And that was a fight that only went 4 rounds. If you get an extra round there, you get the win bonus. She could score 120. And historically, she scored 138, 134, 108, 114 in her last 4 fights. She's a phenomenal DraftKings scorer, and at 8.5K, this is the cheapest we've ever seen her. So of course Shevchenko's in my lineup. Of course she's going to be one of my highest owned fighters because she has that security, she has that promise, and I do think she wins this fight a lot of the time. And even if she does lose it, it's probably due to either a late slip-up or a poorly judged fight at UFCNoche. Now I could be wrong. This could be just a change in the wave here. I mean, Sean Strickland has a belt, Sean O'Malley has a belt. What do I know, right? But Shevchenko to me is the fighter you want to back here, and she's someone I'm looking to trust. Flip side of things, Grasso 7.7. Her last fight, I mean, she went out there and put up 90 points in a win as an underdog on a card without a lot of dogs. She is someone looking to go out there and target. Tons of volume, and although I think she was getting outpointed last time, showed resiliency, showed heart, and showed a good ability to fight to the pocket as well, and showed very good opportunistic finishing ability. So I'm picking Shevchenko. I'm surprised by the line. I think people are counting out the flyweight GOAT, but I get the love on Grasso. As an underdog perspective, that makes sense. There aren't many dogs to like, so I think there is viability in her this week, but not too much. I think the belt goes back to Shevchenko. I think it's going to be a close fight, a hard-fought one, but one where I can't, with a good conscience, not pick Shevchenko when she's under minus 200 for the first time in forever. So, could be wrong, but I'm pretty convicted here in Shevchenko. I do think she gets it done, and that's going to do it for a fun UFCNoche card. But as I mentioned, that's going to do it for me here on the Plays and Fades YouTube channel. Let me quickly run through my quick picks. I'm taking Valentina Shevchenko. I'm taking Kevin Holland if he uses his full fight IQ. Rosas Jr., Daniel Zellhuber, Fernando Padilla, Lupi Godinez, Roman Kopylov, Edgar Chairez, Jasmine Jasudavicius, Charlie Campbell, and Josephine Knutsson. Very chalky card. I apologize for the lack of underdogs, but I do think all those fighters get it done. DraftKings side, like I said, I love that main event there. I do think that was a ton of success there. Favorite-wise, Rosas Jr., Godinez, and Padilla are my 3 chalkier plays. Down low, I like De Silva, although it's hard to trust him. I like Holland with his upside. I think Grasso's a good cash underdog as well. In terms of highest ceiling for Reignmakers, I do like Rosas, I do like Godinez, Campbell, Padilla, Shevchenko, and then the winner of Chairez, Lacerda is the 6th one there. Ton of upside on these fights, a ton of chalky favorites, and that's why it's going to be so hard to build DraftKings lineups. It might be stars and scrubs, who knows, but a card that I like nonetheless. Betting side of things, again, my full best bets will be out on another video sponsored by CoolBet here on the Plays and Fades YouTube channel, so make sure you're subscribed. But I like Shevchenko. I like potential plus money under on the Knutsson fight. I already took an under on the Lacerda fight. And then I'll look to get to the window some way to play Padilla, to play Rosas Jr., and to play Kopylov, because I do think all three of those get it done quite convincingly. But that's going to do it for me here on the Plays and Fades YouTube channel. We broke down every single fight from a DraftKings betting perspective, so please hit the like button down below, subscribe to the channel. We'll be back next week to do the same thing again, so show some love. Almost at 1K subscribers, so I appreciate that very much if you're able to help me out. But with that being said, I hope I gave you guys enough information to go out there and win your bets, succeed with your DraftKings lineups, and at the end of the day, overall, enjoy the fight. So with that being said, guys, wish you the best of luck. Let's make some money.